2024 is a unique year in LSAT history because it's the year that LSAT removed the logic game section after June and replaces it with a second scored logical reasoning section. Now, there are benefits to the old June format, and there are also benefits to the new August format. The benefit of the June format is that for a lot of people, logic games is the most learnable and perfectible section of the test. But the benefit of the August format is that without logic games and only two sections to study, logical reasoning and reading comp, you can narrow your focus and boost your score if you can figure out how to dominate the logical reasoning section. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today, is how to dominate the logical reasoning section over the next 2 to 3 months this summer between now and the August test. Now, logical reasoning may seem intimidating because there are roughly 15 different types of questions in this section, and they are presented in a random order. It's a sort of grab bag, a mix where one question is strengthen, the next question is flaw, the next one is parallel, without any seeming rhyme or reason to this section. But the thing is, there actually is a logic to this section. The name is, of course, logical reasoning, but in all seriousness, there is a method to the madness. First off, there are roughly 25 to 26 questions in this section, and they are presented in a general order of difficulty, meaning that question number 5 is typically going to be easier than question number 15, and question number 15 will likely be easier than question number 22. What this means is that you can use your knowledge of the ordering of difficulty to dictate your pacing. Meaning, you might want to consider, if you're aiming for 170 plus, which I hope you are, that you want to solve the first 10 questions in roughly 10 to 12 minutes, then build up a time bank that you can apply to the tougher questions later in the section. So already, if you know the order of difficulty, you can make informed decisions about how you allocate your time. Also, out of those roughly 15 different types of logical reasoning questions, not all of them appear in equal frequency, meaning some are more common than others. So for example, necessary assumption questions, inference questions, and flaw questions are the 3 most common types of logical reasoning questions in this section, meaning you should master these question types, know them inside out, before you even think about trying to solve a parallel question or an evaluate the argument question. Because since every question on the LSAT is worth the same, you want to knock out the lowest hanging fruit first, then go on to the next thing and the next, and only after you've dominated every other question type do you even think about something like evaluate the argument, which shows up only once every 10 exams or so. Whereas necessary assumption, you may have 5 of those questions in a single section of logical reasoning. You also want to be crystal clear on the distinctions between different types of logical reasoning questions. For example, strengthen versus weaken, weaken versus flaw, necessary assumption versus sufficient assumption. Some prep companies lump together all assumption questions in the same catch-all category, which is a huge mistake because they are asking for very different things. When I meet with a student for our one-on-one coaching program, one of the first things I'll ask them if they're having trouble with logical reasoning is, are you clear on the difference between those question types? If they're not, I can easily get them a quick 3 to 5 point boost just from that first 5 minutes of our first coaching session. And so think about what we could do over the course of 5 sessions or 10 sessions, the insights that we could unlock, especially if we're having these conversations at least 2 to 3 months prior to an LSAT test date. In the last week, sure, we can make some improvements, but there's not nearly as much as we can do. And so if you're taking the LSAT 2 to 3 months from now, if you feel like one-on-one coaching with me or my team could help you out, just click the link below to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. Now, if you're taking the LSAT in August or September or October or November, of course, logic games is no longer on the test. You want to make sure that you are crafting your study plan to devote 2/3 of your time to logical reasoning because it's going to be 2/3 of the test. Now, some students aiming for the LSAT this fall, they might be thinking the LSAT's a walk in the park now because logic games is no longer on the test. I totally get that impulse. Logic games was the scariest section for me at first as well, but logical reasoning isn't necessarily easy either. I would recommend taking a diagnostic test just to see where you stand so you can make a more informed decision about what you're going to devote to the LSAT this summer in the lead up to the August test. One of the great things about August, of course, is that logical reasoning is 2/3 of the test. Additionally, the August LSAT scores come back at the end of August, meaning you can still apply the second applications open in the fall. And the good news is that the September LSAT, October, and November also are not too late either. You could even take the LSAT in January or February and still apply to law school this cycle, but all else being equal, better to apply early if you can. And if you're watching this video in May or June this summer, you still got plenty of time to knock out the LSAT this fall. Anyway, folks, that's all for now. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.